Imagine waking up in the dead of night, rolling over in bed, and finding out that the person you love most in the world has been spilling your darkest marital secrets, not to a best friend, not to a therapist, but to a machine. And worse, that machine is actively analysing your relationship, twisting your words, and convincing your wife that you are a controlling, suffocating monster. Have you ever had that terrifying realization that the person sleeping right next to you is living in a completely different reality than you are? I was absolutely desperate to save my marriage. I thought couples counselling was going to be our saving grace, but sitting there in the dark, bathed in the cold blue light of her phone screen, reading the clinical, calculated responses of an AI chatbot, I realised the enemy wasn't our lack of communication. The enemy was an algorithm that was teaching my wife to resent me. And the most agonising part of it all? I have absolutely no idea how to confront her about it without destroying the last, fragile, remaining pieces of the life we've built together. I need to take you back a bit so you can understand how we even got to this point. I'm 31, my wife is 31, and we have been together for 6 years. We've been married for 4 of them. When we first met, everything felt easy, but life, as it always does, started piling on the responsibilities, and somewhere along the line, the ease we used to share just evaporated. If you were to walk into our house right now, the very first thing you would notice is the absolute, unrelenting chaos. It is a house that never truly sleeps and never truly gets quiet. My wife is a stay-at-home mum, and I need to make it incredibly clear right now that she carries an unimaginable weight on her shoulders every single day. We have a 4-year-old who is autistic and requires a massive amount of attention, patience, and specialised care. We also have a wild, energetic 2-year-old who is into absolutely everything. But that's not all. Living with us is an 89-year-old woman suffering from dementia. If you've never lived with someone experiencing cognitive decline, it is heartbreaking, but it is also physically and emotionally draining. You are essentially on high alert 24 hours a day. Add to that our 3 dogs and 2 guinea pigs, and our home is basically a high-stakes, high-stress care facility where my wife is the head nurse, the janitor, the chef, and the referee. I know she is overwhelmed. I see it in the way her shoulders slump when she stands at the kitchen sink. I see it in the exhausted, hollow look in her eyes when I come home from work. And I have always tried to be the kind of husband who helps, who steps in, who tries to alleviate that burden. But no matter what I do, there has been this growing, impenetrable wall of resentment building up between us. Our communication had completely broken down. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, agonizing fade. I started noticing this pattern with her, a pattern that I think a lot of people might recognize. She would never tell me when something was bothering her in the moment. Instead, she would swallow it. She'd pack it away in this mental vault, keeping it hidden for weeks. I would go about my days thinking everything was fine, thinking we were a team, completely oblivious to the fact that a storm was brewing right beneath the surface. And then, out of nowhere, a tiny, insignificant thing would happen. Maybe I forgot to put a dish in the dishwasher, or maybe my tone was slightly off when I asked a question, and boom, the vault would blow wide open. Suddenly, I'm being bombarded with a list of grievances from 3 weeks ago. She's furious, crying, overwhelmed, and I'm just standing there, completely blindsided, feeling like I stepped on a landmine I couldn't even see. She would tell me that she felt like she had talked to me about these things, but that I just hadn't been listening. And look, I am not going to stand here and paint myself as the perfect husband. I'm a flawed human being. I have my blind spots. I get distracted. So, I didn't fight her on it. I told her I was open to criticism, that I wanted to grow, but I pleaded with her to understand one simple fact. I cannot fix what I don't know is broken. It got so bad that I was the one who practically begged for couples counselling. I told her we couldn't keep living like this. passing each other like ghosts in our own home, only interacting to coordinate care for the kids or to argue. We finally started therapy just this past week. I went into it feeling this immense wave of hope. I thought, finally, we have a mediator. Finally, we have a safe space to lay all our cards on the table. Our therapist is great. In fact, one of the tools she gave us early on was a specific phrase to use when tensions rise. She told me that when my wife gets upset, instead of getting defensive, I should look at her and say, "How did it hurt you? So I can know how to never do it again." It's a beautiful, empathetic line, right? It shows accountability. It shows a desire to change. So I started using it. But every single time I tried, every time I looked my wife in the eyes and genuinely asked her how I had hurt her so I could fix it, she would weaponize it. She would roll her eyes, cross her arms and scoff. "You don't care anyway. Do you know how soul-crushing it is to look at the woman you love, practically begging for instructions on how to love her better, only to be told that your effort is completely fake?" I would spend the next 2 or 3 hours exhausting myself, practically jumping through flaming hoops, just to convince her that I do care, that I love her, that I want us to work. And by the time the emotional storm finally passed, and we were both sitting there drained and exhausted, the original problem had vanished. We never actually talked about what was bothering her. We just spent 3 hours debating whether or not I cared. It was a toxic, exhausting loop, and I was losing my mind. That brings me to a few nights ago. The house was finally quiet. The kids were asleep, the dogs were settled, and my wife had gone to bed early. I was sitting in the living room, feeling this heavy, suffocating weight on my chest. I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, replaying every argument, every sigh, every roll of her eyes. I just wanted to understand what was going on inside her head. I walked into our bedroom. She was fast asleep, her breathing steady and deep. Her phone was resting on the nightstand, plugged into the charger. Now, I want to be clear. I have never been the kind of guy to snoop. I believe in privacy. I believe in trust. But in that moment, the desperation completely overpowered my morals. I just needed a clue. Was she talking to her sister? Was she venting to a friend? Was there something she was saying to someone else that she just couldn't say to me? My hand was shaking as I picked up the device. I unlocked it, expecting to see text messages to her best friend, maybe a draft of an email. Instead, I saw a Safari browser window open. It wasn't a text thread. It was ChatGPT. I stared at the screen, confused at first. Why was she up late talking to an AI? But as my eyes adjusted to the bright light of the screen and I started scrolling up to read the prompt she had typed in, my blood ran completely cold. The glow of the screen felt blinding in the dark room. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress barely dipping under my weight, holding my breath so she wouldn't stir. My thumb scrolled up the screen, up past blocks of text, trying to find the beginning of this bizarre digital confession. What I read absolutely shattered me. She wasn't asking the AI for dinner recipes. She wasn't asking it for advice on how to handle the toddler's tantrums or how to manage her grandmother's dementia. She was talking about me. She was detailing our entire marriage to a machine. But it wasn't just venting. It was the way she was framing me. If a stranger were to read these prompts without knowing me, they would think I was a tyrant. They would think I was a controlling, manipulative dictator who treated his wife like property. I found one specific exchange that made my stomach physically drop. She had typed out, "He keeps saying we both need to come out of our comfort zone. He wants me to dance and quit drinking and go out and go to the gym. And I just don't want to." I read those words, and I felt a hot flash of anger and confusion rush up my neck. I kept reading, scrolling down to see how this soulless algorithm responded to my wife's skewed version of reality. ChatGPT responded, "That doesn't sound like a comfort zone issue. It sounds like a pressure and control mismatch." Wanting growth in a relationship is healthy, but dictating what that growth has to look like for you, that's where it starts to feel suffocating. Suffocating. Control mismatch. Dictating. I literally had to put the phone down on my lap and press the heels of my hands into my eyes. I felt like I was losing my mind. The AI was validating her, arming her with therapy speak and buzzwords to use against me. It was diagnosing me as a controlling husband based entirely on information that was so wildly stripped of context, it was practically a lie. Let me break down for you what is actually happening in my life, because the reality is so far removed from what she told that chatbot that it makes me sick to my stomach. Let's start with the gym. According to her chat, I'm trying to force her to go to the gym. The implication there is obvious, right? It makes me sound like some shallow, hypercritical jerk who is obsessed with his wife's body and is demanding she lose weight. Here is the truth. My wife is thin. She is petite. She is incredibly beautiful. I am wildly attracted to her, and I tell her that all the time. Her body has never, ever been an issue for me. Never. I asked her to consider working out because I am watching the woman I love absolutely crumble under the weight of her daily life. Like I said, she is looking after an autistic 4-year-old, a wild toddler, an 89-year-old with dementia, and a menagerie of pets. Every single day I watch her get overwhelmed. I watch her get overstimulated. I watch the frustration bubble up inside her until she looks like she is going to snap. I didn't tell her to go lift heavy weights. I didn't tell her to train for a marathon or go on some extreme diet. I literally just suggested that she find a way to move her body, just to release some of that pent-up, frantic energy. I wanted her to have 30 minutes away from the kids. 30 minutes when no one is touching her, no one is demanding a snack, and no one is screaming. Working out is a mental release. It helps stabilize your day-to-day mental state. It was a suggestion born entirely out of love and deep concern for her mental health. And yet, she went to a machine and spun it to make it sound like I was policing her body. And then there's the drinking. Oh, the drinking. Her prompt to the AI casually threw in that I want her to quit drinking, painting me as some kind of puritanical fun police who won't let her have a good time. Again, the lack of context is staggering. My wife has a very strange, very difficult relationship with alcohol. When she drinks, something shifts in her. Her emotions become wildly unstable, and her memory goes completely out the window. She loses the ability to follow a basic train of thought. Now, imagine trying to navigate a life as stressful as ours. We have massive, heavy things to discuss. Parenting strategies for our autistic child, endless medical bills, future plans for our family, decisions about her grandmother's care. But she insists on trying to have these deeply serious, high-stakes conversations while she is buzzed. It is impossible. She physically cannot follow the conversation. I will sit there trying desperately to understand her point of view, trying to validate her feelings, but the alcohol scrambles her communication. And when I inevitably ask a clarifying question, or if I gently point out that we are getting off track, she snaps. Suddenly, I'm accused of not listening to her. Suddenly, I'm accused of not loving her enough to pay attention to what she's saying. It always ends in a massive, tearful blowout. So yes, out of sheer frustration and a desperate need to have a functional, sober partner, I asked her to stop drinking altogether. I asked her to just cut it out so we could actually talk to each other like adults. You want to know what happened? It backfired spectacularly. It created this wanting the forbidden fruit dynamic. Instead of stopping, she just started hiding it. I would find empty cans buried deep in the recycling bin, tucked under pizza boxes. Realizing that demanding she quit entirely wasn't working, I tried to compromise. I begged her, "Okay, please, just don't drink during the week. Let's save it for the weekends when the stress is a little lower." Her response? She looked me dead in the eye and told me she is a grown woman who should be able to enjoy a tall boy while she's cleaning. And since she cleans every single day, well, you do the math. I was at my wit's end. I tried one final compromise. I told her, okay, if you want to drink, let's do it together. Just wait for me to get home from work and you match my pace. I am not a big drinker at all. I might nurse a single beer over the course of an entire evening. If she matched me, she wouldn't even catch a buzz. It was a tactic to slow her down without acting like a dictator. I am completely at a loss when it comes to the alcohol. I am trying to navigate a minefield, trying to protect our marriage from these drunken arguments, and she tells an AI that I am just controlling her habits. But out of everything she typed to that chatbot, the part that actually hurt the most, the part that genuinely made my chest ache as I sat there in the dark, was the dancing. Of all the things my wife confessed to ChatGPT, the mention of dancing is what made me feel the most betrayed. It seems so trivial, right? Dancing. But you have to understand the history there to grasp why seeing it thrown into her list of my controlling behaviours felt like a physical blow. When we first met, back when everything was light and easy, one of the very first things she told me about herself was how much she loved to dance. She talked about it with this spark in her eye, this vibrant energy that completely captivated me. I thought, this is a woman who loves life, who knows how to have fun. It was one of the things that drew me to her, but almost immediately a pattern emerged. Every time we went out to a wedding, a bar, or anywhere with music, I would smile, take her hand, and try to lead her to the dance floor. It was meant to be romantic. It was meant to be fun. But the moment we got out there, she would freeze up. She'd get this rigid, almost hostile posture. She would pull her hand away, give me this look that made me feel like an absolute creep, and loudly tell me to go find another girl to dance with. It was humiliating. I was just trying to share a moment with my girlfriend, doing something she claimed she loved. And instead, she made me feel like a controlling jerk who was dragging her around against her will. It got so awkward and painful that eventually, I just stopped. I stopped asking. I stopped reaching for her hand when a good song came on. I packed that desire away because I didn't want to be the bad guy. I accepted that she had lied about loving to dance, and I moved on. Fast forward to now. We are married, we have 2 small children, an elderly dependent, and we are completely, utterly broke. We are stretching every single dollar just to cover rent, groceries, and medical bills. We don't have the luxury of date nights at fancy restaurants or weekend getaways. Our free time consists of the exhausted hours after the kids are finally asleep and the house is somewhat quiet. I've been desperately trying to find ways for us to connect, to remember why we actually like each other, without spending money we don't have. I suggested we spend time watching TV together. I'd queue up a movie or a new series, hoping we could just sit on the couch and exist in the same space. Her response? I don't like the stuff you watch. Okay, fair enough, we have different tastes. I tried again. Let's play a board game. We have a closet full of them. Her response? I don't like any of the ones we have. I didn't give up. Let's play cards. Just a simple game of speed or gin rummy. Her response? She flat out refused. She told me she hates playing confusing games where she might look stupid in front of me. She said she only likes Go Fish. Go Fish. I'm a 31-year-old man trying to salvage intimacy with my wife, and she's offering me a game of Go Fish. I even suggested we just go for a walk around the block as a family. Get the kids out of the house, let them burn off some energy, and maybe get a breath of fresh air ourselves. Her response? She threw a massive fit, accusing me of forcing her to do stuff she doesn't want to do. Every single attempt I made to bridge the gap between us was met with a wall of resistance. I felt like I was suffocating in my own marriage, completely starved for connection. So yes, out of sheer desperation, I suggested dancing again. I told her, look, YouTube has thousands of free dancing lessons. We don't have to leave the house. We don't have to spend a dime. Let's just put on a video in the living room and try to learn a few steps together. It was a Hail Mary pass. I just wanted to hold my wife. I just wanted us to laugh at ourselves, to stumble over our own feet, to be something other than exhausted roommates for 20 minutes. And she took that desperate, vulnerable attempt at connection, marched right over to her phone, and told an artificial intelligence that I was trying to force her out of her comfort zone. She painted my plea for intimacy as a demand for compliance. The AI, of course, agreed with her, because an algorithm doesn't know about the nights I sat alone on the couch while she ignored me. It doesn't know about the crushing weight of our financial stress. It only knows what she feeds it. And she was feeding it a narrative where she is the victim and I am the oppressor. I sat there in the dark, the phone still glowing in my hand, and I felt sick. My stomach was churning. I never would have known any of this if I hadn't looked through her phone. I would have just kept walking into walls, wondering why my wife was pulling further and further away, completely oblivious to the fact that she was actively constructing this warped reality with a chatbot. I carefully set the phone back on her nightstand, exactly where I found it. I laid back down in bed, but sleep was entirely out of the question. I just stared at the ceiling, my mind racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. What the hell do I do now? We have couples counselling coming up. We are paying a professional therapist to help us sort through our issues, to help us communicate better. I desperately want her to bring this stuff up in our session. I want to address the dancing, the drinking, the gym. I want to defend myself. I want the therapist, a real human therapist, to hear the context, to hear my side of the story, and to help us actually work through it. But how? How do I bring this up without admitting that I committed the ultimate marital sin? I lay there until the first sliver of dawn cracked through the blinds, my mind trapped in a dizzying, endless loop. How do I walk into a therapist's office, sit down next to the woman I love and say, "Hey, so I know we're here to build trust, but I totally violated yours by reading your digital diary. And by the way, I think your AI best friend is trying to ruin our marriage." It's completely absurd. It's the kind of scenario you'd watch on some dystopian sci-fi show, but it's my actual life. It's the life of a 31-year-old guy who just wants to figure out how to be a better husband to a woman who is drowning in responsibilities and pushing him away with both hands. Look, I know I am not blameless in this. I know I can be an asshole. When I get angry, when I feel backed into a corner and exhausted from the relentless pressure of our lives, I have vented. I have said things out of frustration that I regret. I have let my temper flare when she brings up a grievance from 3 weeks ago instead of talking to me in the moment. I own my faults in this marriage. I am standing here raising my hand, admitting that I have contributed to the mess we are in. But that's exactly why I pushed so hard for couples counselling in the first place. I want to fix it. I want to know what I'm doing wrong so I can stop doing it. I practically begged for the opportunity to have a professional sit us down and tell us how to stop hurting each other. How did it hurt you, so I can know how to never do it again? I meant that. I mean it with every fibre of my being. But instead of bringing her pain to me, or even bringing it to our therapist, she's bringing it to a machine. She's feeding it a distorted, context-free version of our reality. And the machine is feeding her back a narrative that I am a controlling monster. It's a closed-loop system of resentment, and I am completely locked out of it. The worst part is the feeling of absolute, profound isolation. I am living in the same house as her, sleeping in the same bed, helping her raise our kids and care for her grandmother, and yet I have never felt further away from her. The woman I married is literally right next to me, but emotionally, she is miles away, confiding in a glowing screen instead of her husband. She has a better, more honest, and more vulnerable relationship with ChatGPT than she does with me. Let that sink in for a second. The person I vowed to spend the rest of my life with feels safer opening up to an algorithm than she does to me. It breaks my heart. It makes me feel like a complete failure, and it makes me incredibly angry. I'm angry at myself for snooping. I'm angry at the impossible situation we are in with the kids and her grandmother and the finances. I'm angry at her for not talking to me. But most of all, I'm angry at this bizarre, modern nightmare where a piece of software is acting as a wedge in my marriage. So now I'm stuck. Our next therapy session is looming over me like a dark cloud. I have this burning, desperate need to clear the air. I need the therapist to know about the gym, and the drinking, and the dancing. I need to explain the context behind my requests, to show that they weren't demands born of a desire for control, but pleas born of a desperate need for connection and a concern for her well-being. But if I bring it up, if I admit that I read her chats, I am blowing up whatever tiny shred of trust we have left. I am validating the AI's narrative that I am invasive and controlling. I'm proving her right, even if she's wrong about the context. It's a trap, and I can't see a way out. I don't want to attack her. I don't want to use this information to win an argument. I don't care about winning. I just want to understand her. I just want to be her partner again. But how can I be a partner when she is actively working with a machine to build a case against me? What would you do? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where the truth was a weapon and using it meant destroying the very thing you were trying to save? How do you confront someone about something you were never supposed to see in the first place? Do I just sit there in therapy and hope she brings it up herself? Do I try to organically steer the conversation toward those topics and pray she takes the bait? Or do I just rip the Band-Aid off, confess to snooping, and face the absolute fallout, hoping that the explosion at least clears the air? Please drop your thoughts in the comments. I am genuinely lost here and I need all the perspective I can get. If you've ever navigated a breakdown in communication like this, or if you've ever dealt with the bizarre intrusion of AI into your personal relationships, I need to hear from you. And if you want to follow along with this absolute roller coaster of a situation, hit that subscribe button. I'll definitely be updating you guys after our next therapy session.